The small scout ship moved silently through the dark space between stars. Its hull was black like the void around it, making it nearly invisible to any watching eyes. Inside the ship, 3 alien beings sat at their control stations, studying the yellow star that grew larger on their screens with each passing hour. Commander looked at the data flowing across his display. His blue skin had a slight shine under the ship's lights, and his large black eyes never missed a detail. As the leader of this scout team, he had done this job many times before. Find a new world, study the creatures living there, decide if they could join the Confederation or if they needed to be controlled. "Scanner reading complete, Commander," said Ra from her station. She was younger than, with the same blue skin but smaller in size. Her job was to study planets and the life forms on them. The third planet from the star shows signs of intelligent life. "What kind of signs?" asked, though he already knew what to expect. It was always the same story. "Radio waves, Commander, simple ones. They seem to be using basic communication methods. Some orbital structures too, but nothing advanced." Ra touched her control panel and new images appeared on the main screen. "The planet looks like most others we have found. One main species, probably a few million of them spread across the land masses." The third member of their team, N, looked up from his station. His job was to listen to the communications from new worlds and learn about their languages and cultures. "I am picking up signals from multiple locations on the planet's surface. Many different languages, Commander. They do not seem to be united as one group." Nodded. This was normal too. Most new species they found were still fighting among themselves when the Confederation discovered them. It made things easier in some ways. A divided species was easier to deal with than a united one. "Standard approach then," decided. "Take us closer to their planet. We will study them for a few days, learn about their society and military strength, then make contact with their leaders." The ship called Silent Whisper moved toward the blue and green planet. It had been doing missions like this for over 20 years. The Confederation had found hundreds of worlds this way. Some species joined willingly when they learned about the benefits of being part of a galactic community. Others needed more convincing. Had seen both types. The smart species understood that joining the Confederation meant protection, trade, and advanced technology. The stubborn ones usually changed their minds after seeing what warships could do to their cities. "Beginning detailed surface scans," Ra announced. "The planet has several large land masses separated by water. Population centers are scattered across most of them. Technology level appears to be early space age. They have some satellites and what looks like a small space station." "Any signs of military forces?" asked. This was always the most important question. Knowing how well a species could defend itself helped decide how to approach them. "Scanning now," Ra replied. Her instruments sent invisible beams down toward the planet, reading energy signatures and looking for weapons or military bases. "I am detecting some fortified locations, but nothing unusual for a species at this level. Probably a few million soldiers total, spread across their different land masses." N raised his hand slightly. "Commander, I am hearing a lot of military chatter on their communication channels. Much more than I would expect from a divided species." "What do you mean?" Turned to look at him. "Usually when we find a species that is not united, their military groups only talk to their own kind. But these creatures, they seem to be sharing information across different language groups, almost like they are working together even though they are not one government." Thought about this for a moment. Perhaps they have some kind of alliance against a common threat. We have seen this before. It usually falls apart quickly when we make contact. "Beginning atmospheric entry procedure," Ra announced. "Our cloak is active. They will not be able to detect us." The Silent Whisper slipped through the planet's atmosphere like a shadow. Below them, the world looked peaceful. Green forests, blue oceans, white clouds drifting across the continents. Cities glowed with artificial light where night had fallen. It looked like any other inhabited world. But as they flew lower, Ra began to notice things that made her pause. "Commander, I am seeing more military installations than expected. Much more." "How many more?" "At least 3 times what I initially detected. They are well hidden, but our deep scanners are finding fortified positions across all the major continents. And the energy readings. These creatures use a lot of power for military purposes." Frowned. This was unusual but not unheard of. Some species were naturally more warlike than others. It just meant they would need to be more careful during first contact. "Continue monitoring," he ordered. "We will observe for 72 hours before making contact. I want to know everything about their military capabilities and social structure." As the silent whisper settled into a high orbit around the planet, its crew began their detailed study. None of them suspected that what they were about to discover would change everything they thought they knew about this apparently simple species. The planet below looked calm and peaceful in the starlight, but hidden beneath that peaceful surface was something that would shock the scouts to their core. They had come expecting to find another typical young species, ready to be guided into the galactic community. Instead, they were about to discover something that would force them to completely rethink what it meant to be a military species in the galaxy. The first day of observation started quietly enough. Ra sat at her scanner station, watching the data streams flow across her screens. The planet below seemed normal at first glance. Cities, roads, farmland, and what appeared to be industrial areas scattered across the continents. But as the hours passed, she began to notice patterns that did not make sense. "Commander," she called out, her voice carrying a note of confusion. "I am detecting military training exercises happening simultaneously on 4 different continents." Looked up from his command station. "Simultaneous exercises. Are you certain they are not just regular military activities?" "I am certain, sir. These are large-scale coordinated movements involving hundreds of thousands of soldiers. But here is what confuses me. They are all happening at the same time, yet these land masses are controlled by different governments." N turned from his communication station. "She is correct, Commander. I am monitoring their military communications. Different languages, different command structures, but they are all conducting similar exercises at the same time, almost like they planned it together." Moved to stand behind Ra's station, looking at the scanner displays. On the screen, he could see heat signatures of massive troop movements across multiple continents. Thousands of vehicles moving in formation, aircraft flying in precise patterns, ships moving in coordinated groups across the oceans. "This is unusual," he admitted. "Most species we encounter have their military forces focused on fighting each other, not training together." "There is more, Commander," Ra continued. "I am detecting industrial facilities that appear to be dedicated entirely to military production. Not just weapons, but vehicles, armor, equipment, everything a military force would need. And the scale is much larger than what I would expect for a species at this technology level." She touched her controls and zoomed in on one of the continental land masses. The screen showed a massive complex of buildings and factories stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Smokestacks released streams into the atmosphere while conveyor systems moved materials between buildings. "This entire area appears to be one giant military production center," she explained. "And I can see similar facilities on every major land mass. It is like their entire industrial capacity is focused on military needs." N raised his hand to get their attention. "I am hearing something else strange in their communications. They speak of their military forces as if they are much larger than what we can detect." "What do you mean?" asked. "They mention reserve forces, inactive units, civilian military training programs. According to what I am hearing, The soldiers we can see are only a small part of their total military strength. They seem to have millions more who are not currently active but could become soldiers quickly if needed. Felt a cold sensation in his stomach. This was not normal. Most species had armies because they needed to fight someone, but these creatures seemed to have armies just to have armies. Run a deeper scan, he ordered Ra. I want to know exactly how many soldiers this species has. Ra worked at her station for several hours, using the ship's most advanced scanning equipment to penetrate deeper into the planet's surface. What she found made her question her own instruments. Commander, I believe there may be an error in my scanners, she said slowly. What kind of error? According to my readings, this species maintains over 25 million active soldiers, but that cannot be correct. A species at this technology level should only have a few million at most. Checked his own displays, running the same scans from his command station. The results were identical. Your scanners are working correctly. Run the scan again, but this time include their reserve forces. The new scan took longer, as it had to penetrate underground bunkers and hidden facilities across the planet. When the results came back, all three aliens stared at their screens in disbelief. 50 million additional reserve soldiers, Ra whispered. 75 million total military personnel, and that is just what I can detect with our current scans. N looked up from his station with wide eyes. I am intercepting training schedules, Commander. It appears that most of their civilian population receives some form of military training during their youth. They have programs that teach their children how to fight. Children could barely believe what he was hearing. Yes, sir. Starting at very young ages, they learn about weapons, tactics, physical combat, and military organization. It is part of their regular education system. Walked to the main viewing screen and stared down at the planet below. From space, it looked so peaceful, but the data they were collecting painted a very different picture. I am detecting weapon stockpiles, Ra announced, her voice growing more worried with each discovery. Massive storage facilities filled with equipment. There are enough weapons stored on this planet to outfit an army 10 times larger than what they currently have active. 10 times larger, turned to look at her. Are you saying they could field an army of 750 million soldiers? Based on the equipment I am detecting, yes, sir. But Commander, that would mean nearly 1 out of every 10 creatures on this planet could be turned into a soldier. The implications of this discovery hung heavy in the air of the scout ship. The three aliens had encountered many species during their careers, but none like this. Most civilizations had armies because they needed to defend against enemies or expand their territory. But this species seemed to have built their entire society around the idea of warfare. I am detecting something else, N said quietly. Their entertainment systems, their stories, their games, many of them focus on military themes. War, combat, strategy, survival. It is like their entire culture celebrates fighting. Even their sports, Ra added, studying her cultural analysis displays. Many of their competitive activities simulate combat situations. They train their bodies and minds for conflict even during peaceful activities. Realized they were dealing with something unprecedented. This was not just a species with a military. This was a species that had turned being ready for war into a way of life. Continue monitoring, he ordered, though his voice was less confident than before. We need more data before we can understand what we are truly dealing with here. As the second day of observation began, none of the scouts could have imagined that what they had discovered so far was only the beginning. On the second night of their observation, Commander made a decision that would change everything. The standard surface scans were not giving them enough information about this strange species. They needed to look deeper. N, begin penetration protocols on their communication networks, he ordered. I want to access their military databases and planning systems. Sir, that is beyond standard observation procedures, N replied carefully. These are not standard circumstances, said firmly. We need to understand what we are dealing with before we make contact. Use the advanced infiltration systems. N activated the ship's most sophisticated hacking equipment. Invisible signals reached down toward the planet, slipping past the primitive security systems and penetrating deep into the humans' computer networks. What they found there made their previous discoveries seem small. Commander, N said, his voice shaking slightly, I am accessing their military planning databases. According to these files, what we have observed so far represents only their peacetime military strength. What do you mean, peacetime strength? They have detailed plans for converting their entire civilization to military production in a matter of months. Every factory, every school, every civilian facility can be transformed into a military installation. Their entire population of 8 billion could potentially be mobilized for warfare. Ra looked up from her scanner station. 8 billion soldiers, that is impossible. No species could support that many military personnel. According to their own planning documents, they have done exactly that before, N continued, reading from the intercepted files. Multiple times in their recent history, they have converted their entire civilization for total warfare. They call it total mobilization, and they have refined the process over many conflicts. Felt his legs grow weak. He sat down heavily in his command chair. Show me these planning documents. The main screen filled with human military plans translated into text. The documents outlined step-by-step procedures for converting every aspect of human civilization into a military machine. Factories that made clothing could produce uniforms and equipment within days. Food production facilities could be converted to military rations. Schools could become training centers. Even hospitals had plans for becoming military medical facilities. They have contingency plans for every type of warfare imaginable, N reported as he dug deeper into the databases. Ground combat, naval warfare, aerial fighting, space battles, cyber warfare, biological warfare, psychological warfare. They have studied and prepared for fighting in every possible environment and situation. Ra ran new scans based on the information they were finding in the databases. Commander, I am detecting hidden military facilities that my previous scans missed. Underground bunkers, concealed weapons manufacturing, disguised training areas. The scale is beyond anything I have ever seen. How much bigger? Asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. At least 5 times larger than what we initially detected. They have hidden military capabilities across every continent, under their oceans, and even in remote wilderness areas. It is like their entire planet is one massive military installation disguised as a civilian world. N continued reading from the intercepted files. They have something they call military doctrine, detailed studies of how to conduct warfare. But Commander, these documents cover scenarios we have never even considered. What kind of scenarios? Fighting against technologically superior enemies. Fighting against multiple enemies simultaneously. Fighting when outnumbered by impossible odds. They have planned for situations where they might face opponents with technology far beyond their own, and they have developed strategies for winning anyway. The implication struck like a physical blow. They have planned for fighting against species like us. More than that, sir. They have planned for fighting against species far more advanced than us. Their military thinking operates on the assumption that they will eventually face enemies that could destroy them completely, and they have organized their entire civilization around surviving and defeating such threats. Ra's scanners detected something that made her gasp. Commander, I am reading massive weapons stockpiles hidden in underground facilities across the planet. Not just small arms, but weapons capable of destroying cities, continents, perhaps even the planet itself. They would destroy their own world, could not comprehend such thinking. According to their military doctrine, yes, N confirmed. They have plans for what they call scorched earth tactics. If they cannot prevent an enemy from taking their planet, they will ensure the enemy gains nothing of value. They would rather destroy everything than allow it to be conquered. The three aliens sat in stunned silence as the full scope of human military preparation became clear. This was not a species that happened to have a military. This was a species that had built their entire existence around the concept of being ready for any possible threat, no matter how unlikely or distant. "I am finding more," N said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They have military academies dedicated to studying every type of warfare. They analyze conflicts from their own history and create training programs based on what they learn. They study their defeats as intensely as their victories, always looking for ways to improve. Their children begin military education at age 5, Ra added, reading from her cultural analysis systems. By the time they reach adulthood, every human has received basic combat training, weapons familiarization, and survival skills. They treat military knowledge like other species treat basic literacy." Stood and walked to the viewing screen, staring down at the innocent-looking planet below. How is this possible? How can a species develop this level of military organization without destroying itself? "I think I know," N said quietly. "According to their historical records, they have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. Thousands of years of constant warfare between different groups of their own species. They have not organized their military to fight us, Commander. They organized it to fight themselves." "And they survived," Ra whispered in amazement. "All those thousands of years of warfare, and they not only survived but grew stronger." "They learned," N corrected her. "Every conflict taught them something new about warfare. Every defeat showed them a weakness to fix. Every victory gave them a new technique to perfect. They have spent turning warfare into a science." Realized they were looking at something unprecedented in galactic history. Most species that developed this level of military focus destroyed themselves in civil wars. But somehow, the humans had managed to channel their warlike nature into a force that made their entire species stronger. "Continue monitoring," he ordered, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "We need to understand everything before we decide how to proceed." But deep in his mind, was beginning to suspect that they might not be deciding how to approach the humans. They might be deciding whether to approach them at all. As the third day of observation began, Commander was preparing to depart the human star system and report their findings to Confederation High Command. The scale of human military organization was far beyond anything they had expected, but they had gathered enough data to write their report. Then Ra noticed something that changed everything once again. "Commander, I am detecting unusual energy signatures from the human's natural satellite," she announced from her scanner station. Their moon looked at the pale gray sphere visible on their screens. "What kind of energy signatures?" "High-powered emissions that do not match their current technology level. The signatures are coming from the dark side of the moon, hidden from their planet's view." N immediately began scanning the communication frequencies around the moon. "I am detecting encrypted military communications between the moon and the planet. Very sophisticated encryption, much more advanced than what they use for their planet-based military communications." Felt a chill run through his body. "Take us closer to their moon. I want detailed scans of those energy signatures." The silent whisper changed course, moving toward the lunar surface while maintaining its cloaking field. As they approached, Ra's scanners began to reveal structures hidden beneath the moon's surface and in deep craters on the far side. "Commander, these are not civilian installations," she reported, her voice tense with disbelief. "I am detecting weapons platforms, large-scale manufacturing facilities, and what appears to be massive military training complexes built into the moon itself." "How large?" asked, though he was beginning to dread the answers to such questions. The installations span hundreds of kilometers underground. This is not a small outpost, Commander. This is a complete military base capable of supporting hundreds of thousands of personnel. N was reading intercepted communications with growing alarm. These facilities appear to be weapons testing sites and advanced military research centers. According to the communications I am monitoring, they have been developing weapons specifically designed for space warfare. Space warfare, repeated. They told us they were barely space-capable. That was our assumption, sir. But according to these communications, they have been planning for space conflicts for decades. They have weapons designed to destroy orbital installations, disable spacecraft, and defend against invasion from space. Ra ran deeper scans and discovered something even more disturbing. Commander, the weapons platforms on this moon are aimed at their own planet. Aimed at their own planet? Why would they do that? According to the tactical data I am reading, they have positioned weapons capable of orbital bombardment of any location on their home world. If any part of their planet was captured by an enemy, they could destroy it from space. The three aliens stared at their screens in horror. These humans were not only prepared to destroy their world to prevent its capture, they had actually built the weapons to do it and positioned them in space for that exact purpose. Take us to their other satellite installations, ordered with a sinking feeling in his stomach. As they moved through the human solar system, the scope of human military preparation expanded beyond anything they could have imagined. The fourth planet from their star, a red desert world, revealed massive underground military installations. This entire planet appears to be one enormous military training facility, Ra reported. I am detecting firing ranges that span continents, vehicle testing areas larger than most cities, and survival training zones that simulate every possible hostile environment. How many humans are stationed there? Asked. Based on life sign readings, at least 2 million, but the facilities could support 10 times that number. They have built infrastructure for massive military operations on a planet-wide scale. N intercepted communications from the red planet that revealed even more shocking information. Commander, they are using this world to train their forces for fighting in hostile environments. Desert warfare, underground combat, survival in low-atmosphere conditions. They are preparing their military for fighting on any type of world they might encounter. Any type of world we might encounter, corrected grimly. As they continued their investigation, they discovered that humans had militarized their entire solar system. Asteroid mining operations were revealed to be weapons manufacturing facilities. Space stations presented as research installations contained enough firepower to destroy fleets. Even their cargo ships were designed to be quickly converted into military vessels. But the most terrifying discovery came when Ra detected quantum signatures that should not have existed in this star system. Commander, I am reading impossible energy patterns, she announced, her voice filled with confusion and fear. What kind of patterns? Quantum dimensional signatures. According to my readings, the humans have somehow created military installations that exist partially in parallel dimensions. Felt his understanding of reality begin to crumble. That is impossible. Dimensional manipulation requires technology far beyond anything we have seen from this species. Yet the signatures are unmistakable, Ra insisted. They have somehow learned to hide military assets in parallel realities. The small fleet of warships we detected in normal space is just what we can see. According to these readings, they have entire fleets hidden in dimensions we cannot directly access. N was frantically trying to intercept communications from these dimensional facilities. I am detecting quantum communication channels that bypass normal space entirely. They are coordinating military operations across multiple realities simultaneously. The full scope of human military preparation was finally becoming clear to the shocked aliens. The humans had not simply prepared for war in their own star system. They had prepared for war across multiple dimensions of reality itself. "How is this possible?" whispered, staring at the impossible readings on his screens. "How can a species that appears to be barely space-capable develop technology that surpasses our own?" "I believe I understand now," In said quietly. "Their entire approach to warfare is different from ours. We prepare for conflicts we know about, against enemies we have encountered. They prepare for conflicts that might never happen, against enemies that might not exist. And because they prepare for impossible scenarios," Ra continued, following his reasoning, "they develop impossible capabilities." Realized they were not looking at a primitive species with an unusually large military. They were looking at a species that had transcended normal limitations by refusing to accept that any limitations were permanent. "The humans do not have an army," he said slowly, as the full truth became clear. "The humans are an army. Their entire civilization, their entire solar system, their entire existence across multiple dimensions, all of it is organized around being prepared for any conceivable threat. And some inconceivable threats as well," En added, studying the dimensional readings. As this realization settled over the three scouts, they began to understand that they had stumbled upon something that would change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. They had found a species that had spent thousands of years learning to fight and had somehow survived the process, and in surviving, had become something unprecedented in galactic history. Commander sat alone in his private quarters aboard the Silent Whisper, staring at the report he had to send to Confederation High Command. In all his years of service, he had never faced a decision this difficult. How do you explain to your superiors that everything they thought they knew about military power in the galaxy was wrong? The message he was about to transmit would fundamentally change how the Confederation viewed not just the humans, but their own place in the universe. He had seen species with large armies before. He had encountered civilizations with advanced weapons, but he had never found a species that had transformed their entire existence into a weapon of survival. He began to compose his final report. "Confederation High Command, this is Scout Team 7 reporting from the Sol system. After 72 hours of intensive observation and analysis, I must inform you that our initial assessment of the human species requires immediate and complete revision." Paused, knowing that his next words would sound impossible to anyone who had not witnessed what they had discovered. "The human species cannot be classified using our standard military assessment protocols. They do not simply possess a military force. They have evolved their entire civilization into a military organism. Every aspect of their society, from childhood education to industrial production to space colonization, serves a military purpose." He thought about Ra's scans showing weapon stockpiles that could outfit armies larger than most species' entire populations. He remembered N's intercepts of communications, revealing that humans treated military training as a basic life skill, like learning to read or speak. Human military doctrine operates on principles unknown to Confederation strategic thinking. Where we prepare for likely threats, they prepare for impossible ones. Where we build defenses against known enemies, they build capabilities for enemies that may not exist. This approach has led them to develop military assets that transcend normal spatial limitations. Struggled with how to explain the dimensional installations without sounding completely insane. The humans have achieved military deployment across parallel dimensional spaces. Their visible forces represent only a fraction of their true capabilities. We estimate their total military potential to exceed anything in Confederation records by several orders of magnitude. The commander stood and walked to his viewing port, looking out at the peaceful-looking blue planet below. It was hard to believe that such a beautiful world contained the most militarily capable species they had ever encountered. Human society has evolved to treat peace not as an end goal, but as an opportunity to prepare for future conflicts. Their entertainment focuses on warfare scenarios. Their sports simulate combat situations. Their children play games that teach military strategy. They have created a culture where being ready for war is considered a normal part of life. He returned to his desk and continued writing, knowing that each word would sound more unbelievable than the last. Most significantly, human military preparation appears to be driven not by aggression toward other species, but by their own history of internal conflict. They have spent thousands of years fighting among themselves, and rather than destroy them, this experience has taught them to survive any threat. They approach warfare as a science to be perfected, not just a tool to be used. Thought about the implications for the Confederation's expansion policies. Every species they had encountered before could be evaluated using standard criteria: population size, technology level, military strength, political unity. But the humans broke every rule. I am recommending immediate reclassification of the human species from potential confederation candidates to species requiring maximum diplomatic caution. Any approach to this species must be conducted with the understanding that we are dealing with entities whose capacity for organized violence exceeds our ability to measure or contain. The hardest part of the report was what came next. Had to explain to his superiors that, for the first time in Confederation history, they had found a species that could potentially pose a threat to them. Traditional first contact protocols are not suitable for the human species. Their military capabilities suggest that any attempt at forced compliance would result in casualties far exceeding acceptable levels. Furthermore, their dimensional military assets indicate they possess technology we do not fully understand. Paused and looked at his crew. Ra was still running scans, finding new hidden installations with each pass. N was still monitoring communications, discovering new layers of human military organization. Even now, 3 days after beginning their observation, they were still uncovering capabilities they had not known existed. I am including all scanner data and communication intercepts with this report. However, I must note that our 72-hour observation period has revealed what appears to be only a surface understanding of human military organization. Every new scan reveals additional capabilities. Every intercepted communication suggests deeper levels of preparation. The commander took a deep breath before writing his final conclusions. In my professional assessment, the human species represents a paradigm shift in our understanding of military development. They have achieved something we believed impossible. They have created a civilization-wide military organism that has not destroyed itself through internal conflict, but has instead grown stronger. The humans do not simply have the largest military force we have ever encountered. They have become a military force. I recommend that all contact with this species be conducted through diplomatic channels only, with the understanding that we are dealing with entities whose true capabilities remain unknown. Sealed the message with his command authorization and prepared to transmit it across the galaxy to Confederation High Command. As he initiated the transmission sequence, he wondered how his superiors would react to learning that somewhere in the galaxy was a species that treated warfare not as a last resort, but as an art form. 3 hours later, as the silent whisper prepared to leave the Sol system, a response came back from High Command. It was shorter than had expected. Report received and filed under Special Classification Archive. Recommend immediate departure from human space. Species designated as Monitor, only no contact authorized. Well done, Scout Team 7. As their ship slipped away into deep space, leaving the human solar system behind, the 3 aliens sat in contemplative silence. They had expected to find another primitive species ready to join the galactic community. Instead, they had discovered something that would change how the galaxy thought about military power. Below them on the blue planet, humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware that they had just passed their first test as a galactic species. Military exercises continued as scheduled. Weapons production maintained its steady pace. And somewhere in hidden facilities across multiple dimensions, humanity's vast military machine continued its eternal vigil, ready for threats that might come from anywhere in the universe. The humans were still alone in the galaxy, but now they were alone by choice rather than by ignorance. And in the depths of space, other species would soon learn that Earth was a world best approached with respect rather than conquest. The greatest military force in the galaxy was also the one that preferred peace, as long as that peace came on their terms.